Okay guys, so this is part 2 in the series of Waitai, and specifically in this first part talking about titanium gravel bikes. So titanium gravel bikes, titanium framed gravel bikes, has become the frame material of choice for gravel bikes for a multitude of reasons, and I want to give you these thoughts and considerations before you go out and purchase your first titanium gravel bike. So this actually wasn't my first. I bought a titanium bike from Twin Six and it was too big, and I got their smallest size actually, and I'm 5'6", but the way it fit me, with how much seat tube was coming out, with the way the toe overlap was and everything like that, I just didn't like the way it fit. It was really nice looking. It was a brushed titanium frame, looking kind of like a Moots. It was double butted tie. It was a factory made Chinese titanium frame, but I thought, well, if I'm going to get another titanium gravel bike, I'm going to talk to the folks at Seven. And this is not my first Seven. This was my second Seven. So they worked with me to pick that Geo with a titanium frame that I wanted. Now this was externally cable routed. This is their SL model, and this is one of their original evergreens when they started going titanium. They were willing to work with me and go with a lot of clearance. As you can see, it has a lot of clearance, and the chain stays and the seat stays and chain stays. And I definitely wanted a threaded bottom bracket. At the time, I don't know if they made T47, but I've got a regular standard 6873 threaded bottom bracket. I had the standard headset that's kind of tapered a little bit, but has an internal on top and an external on bottom. And it was paired up with an NV gravel fork. This was one of the first NV gravel forks without the mounts for the packs on the fork. A 12 millimeter through axle, and I had a lot of parts already, so I put some of those parts from my first titanium frame, but I ended up doing the Hope with the blue. I had the Hope black, and the reason I went with the change to the Hope blue is because I didn't want to use the adapter, and they had just recently changed to the flat mount, so I wanted to get the brakes that were already flat mounted instead of using an adapter. And so I built this thing up completely with, well, almost completely with the parts that I had on my other tie frame, and then I customized it. I wanted to go with a crazy combination. Now I went with a 2x11 system for the main reason I wanted this to be more all-road and be able to use double as my adventure road bike, along with being my all-road bike, along with being my gravel bike. So I ended up talking to the folks at White Industries and saying, hey, will a 48 and a 30 work together? Will my derailleur be able to do that? They said yes. I've never had an issue with it. It's been spot on. So that's how I built it up. And I want you to think about some things, and I talked about this in my previous video. When you go with a smaller company, well, this is a pretty big tie company, but a smaller company that's not like a factory, and you have butted tubing, this is double butted tubing, they're going to work a little bit more on selecting the tubing, and it's not going to be factory produced. They're going to work with you and your preferences on how much compliance you want with the frame, how stiff do you want the frame, are you going to be out of the saddle climbing up hills, trying to race to the top, riding crits, or are you going to be someone that's more interested in longer rides and comfort? And they're going to work with you on some of the details of how long your chain stays are, what your head tube angle is up to a limit, what your seat tube angle is, where you're going to sit, how stiff they want to have the budding tubing where it connects to the bottom bracket. They're going to work on those details to kind of fine tune and curate, if you will, a frame that's going to fit your riding style. Matter of fact, they go through this whole questionnaire of how they're going to select these tubings, and then they do some of their in-house budding and in-house manipulating of the tubing to get that tubing just right. So that is the higher price that you end up paying with a titanium frame from a company like Seven, as opposed to getting a big factory made frame from a Chinese company or a Taiwanese company or an Asian country or an American company that basically imports all their stuff. That's the difference that you're going to get when it's actually made and welded here. So then I rode this bike for many years, done many centuries on it, loved it, loved it, loved it, and still love it. When I went to build up this frame, I said I want something that's still nice and compliant, because I go for the softer feel. I do not go for a bike that is stiff. I'm not going to race. I'm not interested in being the PR on a climb and racing to the top of a climb. That's not my thing. Maybe that's your style, but that's not my style. So I picked out this one, and this is their multi-butted tubing, their XX, and I said I wanted something that doesn't have toe over. So you could see, even with the cranks all the way up here, that it's not going to have toe over. And that's with these big 700 by 45 tires. So I wanted something that didn't have toe over, that it was a little bit more adventure focused. And then I asked them, I said, look, I want a top tube to be able to go with a real short stem. I worked out with them, because I could have bought a really nice frame that was a small frame that would probably fit me fine and probably be a lot less, but it would have had toe over for my big feet and my height. If you notice the slight difference, this top tube is actually a little bit longer. This is a little, but this one is, well, somebody pointed out I've got an incredible reach height here, and I need to take that down 5 millimeters, but I wanted something that was a little more comfortable. I also wanted to have a dropper tube routing. This one doesn't have dropper tube routing. I wanted to add this. I also wanted to have internal routing. This is the external routing, and this is internal routing. So they worked with me, and this frame was, yes, it was more expensive than that frame, but because of a warranty I had for my single speed, it cut down the cost dramatically. So I built this up like this, and I went ahead and went with the T47 bottom bracket. That allowed Seven to do a little bit more with the budding, because now it's got a better, bigger insertion for the bottom bracket. They could do more with the tubing and budding with this frame, and I really think that Seven goes above and beyond when it comes to dialing in your frame feel and what they're going to do with the frame. The head tube's the same, the seat post is the same. Now Seven uses a carbon insert to keep you with the regular smaller seat tube 27, but and this one I got painted. I've had a couple plain tie brushed frames, or just plain satin finish tie frames. I wanted something painted, and they did an outstanding job of painting this, but it cost, and they had them go ahead and paint the fork. This is the fork that has the mounts for bags or water bottles. I also have another water bottle cage mount down here, and I noticed this triangle looks a little bit bigger than the other triangle. So that's what I considered when I thought about getting a tie frame from a more expensive custom company like this, is I wanted something that was a little more curated, and you could see how amazing they do with the welds. Well, it's getting kind of dark now, sorry guys. Maybe you could see on this one a little bit more, but they do an amazing job. Obviously it's a lifetime warranty, but I think many of your factory tie frames are a lifetime warranty. This is a forever frame. This is not a frame that's going to corrode and rust and crack or break on you. It's going to be resilient and able to take the adventure, if you will, for gravel. So I think that gravel frames have come a long ways, and I chose to go with titanium. I do think that aluminum, carbon fiber, steel frames are all really nice too. It just depends on what you want out of it. Titanium is going to be lighter than steel, but I do think steel is going to have a real nice metal feel, maybe even better on some cases if you go for a custom made steel frame that's made by an individual frame builder. But I think titanium, if you want to go for a better feel, you almost have to go with a company like Sevin. Otherwise, the feel is going to be limited to what that factory is going to come out. And their factory is going to come out with every size medium or every size small is going to have the same budding on those tubings as it is for you, as is for somebody that weighs 100 pounds more than you. It's going to be the same budding and same makeup, where this is going to be customized to your weight, your riding style, and what you describe where you're going to ride and what you're going to use the bike for. That's the big difference between going custom. So I want to ask you, do you feel like you're into gravel biking enough that you want to go all out and get a custom tie frame or maybe a custom steel frame and work with a frame builder to curate or bespoke a frame exactly to the way you want it? Or are you okay with getting something that's factory or off the shelf, which is a standard medium, small, medium, or large frame, and you figure you'll compensate the fitting dynamics or the fitting fit to you with the stem and the handlebars and the seat and how far you go back on the rails, little things like that. How long are your crank arms? Will you customize it to you when it comes to that? So that's what I want you guys to think about. Hopefully this is not too dark, and I'm going to come up with a little more talk about choosing a tie gravel bike, but then I'm going to go into choosing a tie or steel hardtail, because I'm about to make a big decision on that, so stay tuned.